everybody, and welcome to Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk, and this, my friends, is the Thunder Show, aka the internet's most passionate wine program. And as you can see, I'm not by myself, and this is probably, in a lot of ways, one of the more interesting winemakers that have been on the Thunder Show because he's an active member of the Wine Library TV forum.
I am.
So, Mott, let's link that up. And, you know, very tech savvy in that way. I've watched you be part of a lot of different forums through the years.
I have, yeah.
So, you know, at some level, I think you built your business around, being personal and in the trenches.
Some of my early customers were actually, or early, evangelists of my wines that really were people that I met on forums, and I was involved in the forums even before I ever made wine.
Very cool. And we'll get into that in a second. And also a wine that... from a winery that we had one of the higher scores on Wine Library TV. You might remember better than I do. We can look it up. But we reviewed one of your cabs. Was it the 04 cab?
Yeah, I believe it's the 02.
02 Match Dragon.
The Butter Dragon Hill. Right?
And, well, high, right? Like 94?
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
like 90, I don't know.
Who knows? But it was good.
Everybody told me you said it was better than Insignia. So.
I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, a lot of interesting stuff going on with premium California cabs these days, so I think that'll be interesting to talk about. But, Randy, why don't you introduce yourself to the Vineyards?
My name is Randy Sloan, and I own Match Vineyards from St. Helena, California.
Randy, what kind of production?
We're quite small. Our big production, our biggest vintage so far was our 05, and we did 735 cases.
6-packs or 12-packs?
That's 12 packs equivalent.
Mm-hmm. And you've got two different wines, right?
We have two different wines. We have Butter Dragon Hill. They're both single vineyard Cabernets. Mm-hmm. Butter Dragon Hill is 7 acres, and Bacon Brook is 3 acres. So just a small.
And how'd you name them?
Well, they're kind of long stories.
Tight story.
Tight story. Butter Dragon Hill was named by my son and his best friend when they were playing with. They were shooting water guns at dragonflies, and suddenly a butterfly came up, and the dragonflies were doing a little kind of aerial mating thing going on, and they thought, well, the butterfly can't mate with the dragonflies, but they were very young at the time. Excuse me, he's not young anymore, he's far more mature. But that what would happen if the butterfly and dragonfly mated? You'd get butter dragons, and so that's
pretty
where
cool.
Butter Dragon Hill was named. Bacon Brook is actually
Tastes like bacon?
No, it has nothing to do, and I never even thought of that until
that was a big mistake, Randy.
Yeah.
You could have got at least a 2 or 3 point higher score.
Yeah, my son is actually my stepson, and his father unfortunately passed away when he was very young, and his last name is Speckenbach, my son's last name, and his late father's last name, and so Speckenbach, kind of loosely translated from German, is Bacon Brook, and so we named that wine in honor of my son and his late father.
Quite nice. Now, before we get into the show, I've been reading comments from prior shows lately, so I'm going to bang that out. So
go ahead.
You feel free to drink some wine, just chill right here while I just, you know, this has been a big fun thing for the last week or so. We want to keep this tradition going. Reading comments from the prior episode, so let me jump right into it. E-Dog says, "Hey Gary, hi Mott." Mott, you get a little shout out there. "Cool episode. I had a Montepulciano di Abruzzo in London in September, and it got good surprise as well. I liked it a lot. I'm into studies, last year of law school. I'm into my cooking, my wine, my football. I have a lovely time with my girlfriend, and we're going on our first week getaway this week. I'm looking forward to that. P.S. It's really good that you read the comments again. It's like going back a year and a half. It's all about community. Thanks for making an important part of the show. E-Dog, I appreciate that." Just to preface, the question of yesterday was, what's your scene? So he was just kind of telling you what his whole scene is. F. Jackie Martling says, family, wine, and golf in the great state of North Carolina. Life is good. I thought it was good, right?
That
just
is good.
Simple. Good answer. New York Pete asks, is Tim F. really boring? Yes. Inside joke. Got to be in the forums with this guy. JD says, Gary, really liked the show today. I'm a novice at all things wine, but this show got me stoked, really excited for me to branch out and try new wines. I had a Montepulciano wine this past weekend that blew my doors off, so I was excited to see that the show on the show today. I'll have to try and find this one at a local shop. Thanks again, and for the show, JD, I appreciate it. Keep trying new things. And Alan C says, the last 4 seconds were awesome. I agree, Mott. That was a really good ending. If you haven't seen it in my left hand. Randy, California Cabernets. I'm gonna do a little Q&A. I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit from the way we've had guests normally. A lot of people talking about how now the suggested retail of these wines is
the Butter Dragon Hill is 72 and the Bacon Brook is 75.
bluntly. I mean, without hurting your business, of course. And, I know the quality of your wines. But are you concerned about where the economy's at? I mean, a lot of people in the inner circles of the wine industry, fans that watch the show, a lot of people worried about this price point for California wines, or just wines in general.
Yes.
But I think Napa gets a bad shot, unfortunately, at some level. But a lot of people concerned about the price points. Where are you right now in your mindset from a business standpoint with wines like this? Do you feel like you're producing low enough and have enough momentum, or are you concerned with where things are going?
I think everyone, or most people, or vintners in my position, are sort of worried about obviously we're all worried about the economy and where it's at, and folks are still drinking. Sometimes we want to drink more, but they are trying more value-oriented brands and like things that you're doing and showing some great. I mean, they're great values from around the world. The Napa, we've raised prices very quickly, and
you especially look at that window from let's say the 94 vintage to the 04 vintage, and it's staggering.
Well, and it's sort of Napa wines have sort of exploded onto the stage. I mean, people always.
Thanks, Mott. Mott's saying, get the bottles out of your.
Well,
everybody just got really happy with Mott.
So, like I'm so good looking to look at, but
better than me. Keep shooting away.
Anyway, so Napa wines actually have sort of exploded on the world stage. Relatively recently. I mean, when you compare to other wine regions, I think.
Sure.
And only 4% of the wines made in California come from Napa. So I mean, it's a very small region. I think, people will talk about Bordeaux.
That's a really great fact.
It really is, because I mean, people talk about Bordeaux and Burgundy and Napa, in the same sentence, which is really, I mean, I think hats off to the vintners who certainly preceded me.
Heights and
right, these guys who sort of set the stage for making world-class wines, and putting Napa on the map for such a small production. So if you take my production, which is like 700 cases, or you take even some of the very biggest names in Napa, the cult wines, the Harlans, the Screen Eagles, or whatever, and 1,000 case production, and compared to a first growth, 40,000. So it makes sense that actually they're going to be similar prices, but it's not as long a history.
With that all in play, is there, and the math works, right? We don't make as much, blah, blah, blah. Do you feel like, I feel like I want to give value to the people watching. Are there whispers with the producers that produce this kind of price point of maybe concern, repricing, hold strong? What is the pulse of at least your circle? I know you can't speak for all of Napa.
Right.
But, you have a lot of friends out there. What is the pulse of I'm just so curious what the pulse of a $70 to $150 wine producer is right now, because I've heard a lot of mailing lists that used to sell out in an hour are not getting any orders at all. Some of them now, obviously big brands and people that have built their business. I think this is what kind of makes you special. You've kind of, from people that watch me in the business sense on the GaryVaynerchuk.com, let's link that up a little bit. You've gone into the trenches and have been with the people and created a story. It's been about your brand, not about my stupid score or anybody else's stupid score. I think that is very unique, and I've watched that for a long time from you. And there's a couple other handful of people that have figured it out.
Right.
But I wonder if that's going to be a protection for you that might not be in place for other people.
Well, you want to establish relationships. It's good for business, as you know, but it's also a lot more fun.
Sure, it's life.
I mean, it's being, knowing the people who are enjoying your wine, who are enjoying what you do, is what makes it sort of more
Special.
fun than going and punching a time card for in a traditional business. And so, anyway, getting to your question about, I feel better in a position at $72 a bottle than I would feel if I was at 150, or because I feel like we're a great value for a single vineyard cab from Napa.
And a lot of people just gasped watching when you say value at $72. Not that I
know. No, I know that.
I just think, listen, I've been reading a lot of my emails. I just did an episode at Crew, and people, I want to be very sensitive to what people are thinking. And
Sure.
I don't disagree. I really don't. I mean, when we had it, I want to go back and watch that episode, but I remember thinking, when we had the O2, like, this is a real, this is an under the radar. But I think so much has changed, obviously, in the last 12 months. And I wonder, you know, are you personally planning to hit the road more? Have you?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
That's
is
the move.
that
Shake hands,
back
let people
in
taste your wine.
1997, 98, 99, you know, Napa Wines, everybody gets a small, you know, vineyard and winery, and you start making really great wines, and you know, everything, you know, you think suddenly, you know, somebody's going to taste it. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk's going to taste my wine and give it a you know, 1,001 points, and suddenly I'm going to sell it out all the time. And maybe at one time that's the way it worked.
It was,
you know,
right?
You know,
I mean,
the press would anoint, you know,
a new
crown would pass, and everybody would rush to get on the mailing list. And then you would get, I mean, I was on a lot of those mailing lists. I was a wine collector a long time before I was a wine buyer. And you'd be held hostage, kind of, you know. Oh, you've got to, you know, if you don't buy this year, you're not going to get next year, you know, that kind of thing. And you're going to see a lot less of this. I tell people when, we never put any kind of a deadline or anything on our mailers and stuff like that. And in that, I tell people, you know, act quickly. We're not guaranteeing allocations. You know, but as long as I have the wine to sell, I'll sell it to you.
Sure.
And certainly any of these mailing lists, cult mailing list or whatever,
they have 1 hour or 1 day.
Right. You know, if you you know, are past that day and you're waiting for a credit card cycle or something, you know, people do that kind of thing.
Maybe on vacation.
Right. You know, maybe it's been sitting there because your wife put it on the table instead of you getting it, or maybe she threw it away. You know, whatever.
On purpose.
Yeah. You know, call the winery, because this is one of those years where I think. Wineries are not going to sell as quickly through their releases.
Sure. So we're going to start with the 06 Butter Dragon.
This is
right?
our brand new release. This is going out to them, shipping as
Kinda
we
now.
speak to our mailing list.
And we decided to do the 06 before the 05, and then we're going to do the 05 bacon. But why are we starting with the 06? For anybody who's wondering, who's always heard, we'll probably do the 05, then the 06.
You know, one, because this is a baby. I just thought it would be kind of fun to take a peek at it. We do not recommend opening our 06 right now,
Or your 05.
or 05,
Or your 04.
right? But
do you recommend opening any of the wines you've made? I'm serious.
I think the 02 is ready to go. The 03 is probably drinking the most ready and better for
A little
anybody.
warmer vintage, right?
Yes.
So it's a little more approachable.
Well, actually, I think at least on our side of the valley, it was a little cooler. In fact,
Okay.
And we actually got, maybe you don't have as big a robust wine.
It's a little more
one to say.
classic,
Yes.
you know. Do you like the 03?
I love our 03. And
You love them all? I mean, they're your children.
Well, yeah. And
No,
I
wait a minute. Mott, we got him on something.
Well, here, and I'll
Yeah.
describe it. But they are your children, but it's sort of like you're about to be a dad,
Yes,
and
man.
you're going to know this, is that
You don't love all children equally.
Well, no, you do love all children equally, but, however, when your son goes up to the plate
Yep.
and swings his bat, you don't know whether
he's a mess.
you don't know whether he's going to hit a home run or run the wrong way around the bases.
If he runs the
And
wrong
so
AJ's in the building today.
So like a child, and like your child that you love, you worry about them, you wonder, you
Sure.
fret over them, you're nervous, you want to take care of them, but you have a special place in your heart for them.
I understand. I think that's a great answer.
Oh.
And but just a quick note, AJ, my little brother who's 11 years younger than me, was
Okay.
so trained that when he was in first grade on the Little League baseball team, the manager of the team said every single player just follow AJ.
Okay.
So the nuances of listen, I'm having, a boy or a girl. The fact of the matter is, softball or baseball, they're going to be prepared with rules.
Okay.
They're going to be phenomenal.
So they may not have the home run, but they're going
Not
to
going
go
to
the
be that
right way
great.
around the
We're not
bases.
that big of a people, but up to fourth grade, we dominate by pure knowledge of the game.
Okay.
Then it gets a little hairy because everybody gets bigger. All right, let's get into this. Let's give
Okay.
this a snippy snip. This is about 72 bones
Yes.
suggested, which means we'll probably sell for $39.99. I'm just kidding.
I
Just
know,
kidding,
and
just
everybody
kidding.
else will be mad at you.
Exactly. Pretty interesting on the nose from the standpoint of, I get a little bit of, I get the fruit, the black currant,
Right.
I get all that, but what caught me was almost like a charcoaly granite kind of gravel, almost like a minerality kind of thing on the nose, on the back end, which was pretty neat.
Yeah,
kind of caught me.
The butter dragon is something we've seen as the vineyard matured. This vineyard was planted in 2000, and we've seen as it matured, it's starting to display some more earthy kind of
It really
characters,
is.
and you'll actually see in the 05 even more that there's an earthiness, kind of a more classic profile, which I think actually, due to its location, it's located on the western side of the valley, and
Okay.
so it faces east, so it doesn't get as much
sun.
And so in
But
a
you could
cold year,
Okay,
we
go
could
ahead.
have a problem. But in a warm year, it's not going to go as over the top as say something from somewhere
valley
else in the
floor, what
valley.
have you. Do you feel like that makes you almost a little bit more Bordeaux-like?
Oh, I would hate to make that kind of comparison because it seems sort of almost stereotypical. But
Sure.
I do think it's
But for
maybe
somebody
less
that
over the
understands,
top, less more
left bank,
classically styled.
Pauillac.
I also my winemaker Kerry Gott is one who believes in harvesting, not trying to get every single ounce of like ripeness and holding them on the vine. I mean, he believes in it's time to harvest the grapes and let's bring them in. Let's not.
And so if that doesn't give you the huge over-the-top, explosive, blow-up in the mouth bomb thing,
Right.
then that's okay because he's a little bit more into the balance of it.
Yeah, a
He
little more
wants
into
this-
the balance, a little more conservative style as well.
We'll give it a whirl.
Hey, I didn't miss my first spit in the New York Jets.
No, and you came with authority. You
I
almost
know.
broke the bucket.
Okay, I know.
It was broken.
Well, I was trying to get the bottom to come out.
That would have just been an all-time moment.
Oh man,
That's
that
at least
would've
a
been
million
classic,
YouTube
yeah.
views. Very dry.
It is.
Very dry. Big firm tannins on the back end. Good fruit up front. Again, dark fruit.
Yeah.
Coming through. More like a blackberry. Even like the sour small blueberries kind of coming
yeah.
through. Not too bad on the oak. I get a little of the heat on the back end, just a hair. What is it?
This is, I believe,
14.6?
14.6 or 4.
14.6, which means it's a little.
Hey, no, we're very honest.
But you're allowed, right? You're allowed.
There is a spread, and I don't know exactly what it is.
I think
but
it's
you are
1.0
allowed.
or 1.5. I'm trying to remember for Napa.
Is it
But
1?
I think you're up to 1. Yeah, you get to 1.
Wow.
You like that, right? Well, and since you
No,
pay
actually,
taxes,
I don't like.
since you get paid
Actually, I don't
taxes
like
on
it. I try not to get. Because actually, it's on the boards. It's funny because each and I must admit I have logged on to competing boards.
Sure.
And
There's a lot
each
of
one
good
each
boards.
one has a different sort of personality and style, right? And some of them have this sort of high alcohol, and they're more more traditionally bent. Some of them are like hey, give me the feed me the Zen intravenously type thing. So I'm sort of sensitive to that number because
Sure.
I know some people pay attention to that number. I try not to pay attention to the number as much as to what's going to come out of the wine.
I think that's a valid point. Now, on the back end, we do feel the heat. Do you think it's a product of a little bit of being younger and needs to kind of
I think
come
so.
together?
I think so. That this wine is definitely got some melding together.
Yeah. I mean, really good fruit. I like the subtleties of the oak. The alcohol on the back bothers me a little bit, but again, it's an 06. I know where that is kind of going. It's probably a wine, based on the palate and the tannin structure on the back end for me, I feel like this is a wine that could easily hang around for the next 12 to 15. What kind of window do you...
I would say that. I would start opening these. I mean, from where it is now, and I always encourage people to contact me, because nobody drinks more of my wine than I do.
That's a great
And
point.
So,
Let's link up your email. You'll give it to Tomat? What is it?
info at matchvineyards with an S.com. Matchvineyards.com.
Where's the R_Sloan at AOL or Sloan Dog 94 at AOL.com?
I don't have any of those.
All right.
That's a different person.
So, all in all, I mean, 06, listen, I really like this guy, but 06 is a tough vintage for me. I'm not so in love with it on a personal palate. Again, it's only a personal game. I think it's a very well-made wine. Again, I'm in love with this dark fruit style you have. I'm just in love with this. To me, this kind of rolls in, as a solid 90-point, California Cabernet that definitely, shows more real kind of stuffing to it than a lot of your counterparts, unfortunately for them. And you know what? It may be vineyard site, because you get into the heat and get more of the fruit. But it is showing pretty well. Where do you kind of rank 06 in your mind? And again, we're evaluating it so early.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
it's
blah.
really tough for me to evaluate at this stage.
Does it remind you of anything yet? Do you say, oh wow, 06 is acting a whole lot like 02?
04, maybe.
04?
Yeah,
Yeah, it has more similarities to 04.
I would say so.
All right, let's give it a rinse. Now,
It's hard to tell with the vineyard also being very young that we've had this sort of
Yeah, you haven't had a
development
whole lot of
history. Well, not a whole lot of history, but also the vineyard has matured and come up with some. Yeah, that's not very much again.
No, we're rinsing.
Oh, I thought you were cheap. Short
You drink
pouring.
you drink this all the time. You don't need
I know. Yeah, I'm.
Now,
especially this week.
let's again, I'm trying to mix up the interview style a little bit. What wines are you drinking? What outside of your stuff? What are the 3 or 4 wines that are kind of hitting your radar lately?
Lately I've been started to dive into my 99s, the Cabernets.
Yeah. What's the last wine that kind of rocked your face off?
The last
just
wine
took it
that
off,
rocked my face off.
like that.
Damn.
That movie with what was that
I
movie
don't know.
where
Can
they
I get
replaced
back
the
to you on that?
faces?
Let me think about it.
Travolta and maybe what's his name? Ghost Rider guy. That crazy dude.
Oh yeah, I know that movie.
Do you remember that Face Off?
I know that movie, but I don't
Face Off.
know the last wine that rocked me. Let's see.
Nothing is
popping to my head. I think I've had a dry couple of months. It seems like
You're on a drinking cold streak. Tasting.
Yeah. Sometimes it works out that way.
And how about category-wise? I mean, what's the latest discovery, even if it's been the last year? Is there any category that kind of caught your attention?
Oh, category? I'd say, last summer we spent in Barcelona, and Spanish whites. I'm just like all over Spanish.
Whites.
Yeah, I just think
Ruleta?
and what is
Verdejo?
it? Verdejo. I don't even know the names. It's sort of like the reason I collect Napa Cabs is because I speak the language and but I just thought the Spanish whites are so interesting and just so refreshing.
And great with
just
the food, right?
They just go with everything and
they romanced
right.
They romanced your pants off, didn't they?
I try.
I keep them.
They have to buy me dinner and take me to the movie first.
Fair enough. Let's give this a sniffy sniff. Wow, now this has a whole different ballgame going on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this is aromatically very interesting. There's a little bit of a, and I also like, once again, the black currant, a lot of black currant, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Like black currant, like pure black currant juice, getting a little subtlety of almost like a celery stick, a little greenness, which I love. Love that. I think way too many wines are missing that. Almost like a minty, I'm going to call it eucalyptus, but almost like maybe like a Bloody Mary with your celery stick, and you put a mint leaf in there because you got mixed up and thought it was a mojito. That's what this kind of smells like a little bit to me. I like this wine on the nose quite a bit.
I do too.
Yeah, let's give it a whirl.
I was going to try to go softer that time.
You still brought the power. Stylistically, this is much more up my alley.
Yeah.
Once again, you still have the black fruit, but it gets a little bit more. This wine has and not because it's a year older. Really, it's not. This wine just, in general, in my opinion, has a lot more going for it.
Yeah.
How did talk
well,
to me about it.
I've often said that the 05 is sort of my favorite of
Child.
the Butter Dragon so far. I mean, I always thought that it was really. I asked my winemaker one time. I was like, "Well, how would you sort of describe it?" Because it is different. It's very distinct. And he's like, "It tastes like Cabernet. I mean, it is the Cabernet fruit, that like you say, that really
pre-1991 Cabernet,
right.
Real Cabernet."
But I mean, the Cabernet
Before the
grape,
steroids era.
the Cabernet grape in its pure unadulterated form, and not overripe, not anything. I mean, it has actually an element of greenness. It's like, I mean, currant is a plant, and it has, it has stems and leaves. And
But too many people are picking late.
I hope I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong on that.
Picking late and over oaking.
Yeah.
And kind of masking the truth. And this wine's not. And I think that's, remembering the 02, I kind of liked it about that. I think this kind of goes back to that. So it's it's very, I know you hate this, but it is very Bordeaux-like. It's kind of like a Bordeaux in a vintage like 05, a vintage like 2000, where it was a little bit hotter in Bordeaux. I mean, to me, this could be tricky in a blind tasting. You could get caught off guard for a left bank play, like a very good Pauillac from a 2000 vintage. I really like the length, too. The finish is extremely long. This is good. I like this. Let me give it one more shot. It's a good time to say happy birthday to Rodney.
Happy birthday, Rodney.
There you go. Get in there. Love that. I'm feeling this wine. This wine has serious elegance on the back end and much more interesting structure. I like the juiciness. I like the dry kind of palate play that I get from this wine. And I like the fact this wine is really drinking quite nice. How long was this open for? Not too long, right?
I didn't decant. I actually opened them about noon.
Okay, so, about 2 hours, 15 minutes of breathing.
Without a cork, right?
Yeah. This is really showing well. To me, this is a 93 plus point effort. I think this is spectacular Cabernet. I think this is extremely well made. Would I score it a 92 plus if he wasn't sitting here? Yes. I like it.
All right.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's, to me, somebody who's a Cabernet Franc fan, you're going to get a little bit.
Well, it does seem.
Right?
I mean, it does seem a little kind of like it's from the right bank. I mean, but it has maybe it has like 3% Merlot instead of being almost all Merlot and Cab Franc. It's not 97% Cab and a little bit of Merlot, but it does have kind of a Cab Franc.
What's funny? I would go the other way. I really would peg this for a Pauillac. I really would. I get the Cabernet Franc kind of thing, and I would think like, what is but I would definitely not think this was Merlot driven.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No.
Which is what would kind of make me go towards that right bank play.
Okay.
Whereas this has got that, though it's got I would almost think, oh, this is an 85 Cab, 15% Cab Franc. Mm-hmm. And that would make me think. But it's really good. I mean, it really is showing quite well. I like it. Good job. And finally, the 05 Bacon Brook Cab, 14.6 alcohol content. Oh, funny how they all land on the same number.
Yeah,
And what is this suggested retail?
This is 75.
Okay.
This
so
comes
it's
from
just slightly a little more.
It's a little more, and that's kind of reflecting. This vineyard.
Look at this color.
This vineyard is less than 3 acres. Sits on a ridge west of St. Helena, kind of overlooking the town of St. Helena. You can see it.
And who are some of your neighbors, just for some I think people like
down
that
the
stuff.
road is Marston. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
stuff.
it's not like really high up Spring Mountain. It's it's
Lower.
what I would call low Spring Mountain,
Yeah.
in that it sits on a ridge above St. Helena as opposed to going up Spring Mountain.
Got it, Mark? Thank you. Now, while we let this breathe, I think more of changing up the style. Why? Why did you become a winemaker? Were you a collector and just got the bug so much that you had to be part of the game?
Well, actually, not even that. I was a collector, and I had the bug of being into wines, and that drove us to look for a place in the wine country.
To live.
What
were you doing prior to that?
I have a high tech background,
Okay.
and I speak Russian with your dad. I
Yep.
learned Russian in the army and things like that. So, but anyway, we were looking for a weekend place. We lived down in the Bay Area, and so the place I found and we fell in love with was Butter Dragon Hill, and the vineyard. It had an old vineyard that was being taken out because of phylloxera, and Jim Barber was putting in a new vineyard.
Big time.
And so
what was planted? Chenin Blanc?
Now, I believe it was Zinfandel grafted over to Chardonnay is what had been there.
Yep.
And so, but when we saw the place, it has a great view and everything, but it was a ripped field basically, and just an empty field. And I thought, okay, well, I'll make a little wine in the garage. Well, Jim told me that I'd have 18, 20 tons of grapes. So it's a little more than a garage.
Did you ever consider selling off fruit?
We did, and we looked at some different numbers, and actually at
this
that
was more lucrative.
Well, it's doable because at 7 acres and having Jim Barber farm it, it'd be really hard to break even.
Yeah.
With the amount of fruit that you could sell.
Sure.
I mean, even though we get a premium, for Cabernet fruit, and,
you were forced into it.
I was forced into it, so kicking and screaming, I became a vintner. No, it's
and how'd you come
great.
up with the name?
Match is my wife's last name. It's her name is Sasha Match, and she's a partner in the business and helps out on some of the promotional things, and that's her last name. And my last name is Sloan, and there was already a Sloan in the valley.
Yes, there was.
You may have heard.
Yes.
And
small little cold.
yeah, but anyway, so we're Match, and it's Ellis Island from a Russian Jewish name. So.
Very cool.
Used to.
It was probably Machuvsky or something.
No, I think it meant sword, Mitch, which is like a key or something.
Yeah. Now this smells like happiness.
Oh.
I mean, the bouquet of this wine is extremely seductive. Like, I feel like I'm being tricked into liking it.
Well,
No, but I mean,
look into my eyes.
I mean, but it's really quite nice on
Right.
nose. I mean, a lot of fruit, very vibrant. Now, whereas we were really dark fruit, in my opinion, this gets a little bit more red fruity to me.
Yeah.
This, strawberries, cherries, is that what you've seen?
Yeah.
Am I on point there?
I would say yes on the nose. You're right, right on. I mean,
But
once we
you
put
get
it in
into
our mouth. Well, these are Spring Mountain fruit. There's very little water up there, so it's kind of. This is one.
Very candy.
Actually, the '05 is more approachable now than our '04. Our '04, I mean, is quite frankly, put it in the cellar and forget you have it for a while, and
Yeah. Let's give it a shot.
by the time you can enter in uncorked,
Yes.
you can,
If I ever... Oh, they put you up to that, huh?
No, but I just thought I would.
A little zing. All right. This wine's a 44. I mean, probably the worst wine I've ever had in my life. All right, let's give this a shot. If you don't know, I own a social wine network, Cork, C-O-R-K-D. I've had it for a couple years now. I've done nothing, and I take a lot of shots for it. But it's a last laugh game.
Yeah.
It's a last laugh
that's
game.
right.
Just saying. All right, let's give it a sniffy sniff. Oh, again, we did that. Let's give it a whirl. God, the candied fruit on the nose. This is a big boy.
It is.
This is a
It's
big
one,
boy.
It's one you got to brush your teeth afterwards.
I got caught. I really thought with the lighter red fruit, it was going to be more of an elegant play. Flip side, I mean, this wine really uppercuts you to the mouth and doesn't apologize. Big fruit, big candied fruit, little bit over the top candy for my palate, but still loaded with that flavor profile and great length. A little hinty oaky for me in comparison to the other two.
Yeah.
Why? Anything different than the other two?
No, they get basically the same oak treatment.
Maybe just
Well, now it spends the Bacon Brook in the past. It has spent 26 months or so in the oak, French oak, whereas Butter Dragon is more like 22 months. And in the past, that's been a decision.
Is that what happened in 05?
That's what we've done.
So what you're basically saying is that my master palate was able to figure out that 4-month play.
It was.
No, but I mean, it's kind of interesting. I really felt like there was a little play there.
Now,
and
I
it's not
tend to think that
Listen,
after
I would oak monster him in a second.
Yeah.
I feel cozy with this guy. It's not there, but I definitely.
Yeah, it gets a little more.
Are you going back?
We may.
Do you
it's
find
sort of.
it?
It's sort
I'm
of.
sort of
I don't
jumping in.
find it over oak.
Okay.
But it's something that Carrie Gott and I will look at and make that decision. Now, some of our bottling decisions, quite frankly, we custom crush, which if people don't know, we make our wine at another winery, and we recently sometimes
where are you
bottling
doing that? The Napa Valley.
We were at Rombauer.
Oh right, and then.
And then we moved to a fairly new place called Bin to Bottle.
Okay.
It's a project with Marco DiGiulio.
Oh, really?
Is
Yeah,
there?
very cool.
So some good names
Good guy.
there, and it's a custom crush facility, kind of like people know Crush Pad. It's sort of like that, except kind of specializes in larger wineries. And so now we will have more control over when we bottle, because at least when we were at Rombauer, we had to sort of work around their schedule, around bottling Chardonnay. Generally, you had to bottle either before or after the.
So what happens when you bottle 1 billion bottles of Chardonnay?
Right.
I mean, that brand is unbelievable.
I must say that they treated us wonderfully. They are a first class family
Yep.
and a first class place, and they treated our wines like their own,
awesome.
and they took good care of us.
I like this wine. Slightly over oak for me. Kind of falls in that 91 plus point score for me, but 3 wines. And again, am I a little softer with the person there? Absolutely. But not really, because I feel kind of cozy and comfortable with him. A little over oak for me. I agree. I think a lot, not over oak, that's not where I want to go. Just a hair. I think a lot of people, and I agree with you, will probably, in a lot of, so you've been tasting these wines.
Yeah.
Are people responding a little bit more even to this?
No. I
so
mean,
more
generally, I mean, from a marketing or whatever standpoint, I mean, the Butter Dragon typically is more of a marketable, more mass appeal. Not mass appeal. I mean, because you're talking about a $70 bottle of Cabernet.
But is that because there's more of it? Maybe they can it's accessible to them more. I mean, I've seen this in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I've rarely seen this.
Well, that's true.
By production, right?
But I think,
what is the production
but I also,
on this?
This particular vintage. Now, '05 was a monster vintage in Napa. I mean, it was great vintage, and everybody ended up with so much more wine than they expected. So we were, I believe, don't hold me to it, 300 or so cases of this, which is far more than we will ever have again of Bacon Brook. But when I taste them side by side, I find that Butter Dragon typically is preferred. I don't know. 3 to 1 or something.
75%.
Yeah, something like that.
And is this really a mailing list restaurant play for you mainly? From a business side? Like, when I hear that kind of level, you think a lot's going to go direct to consumer through the mailing list, and then you're going to think that, a small, then you want to get into restaurants, because that's always been like kind of a thing. Right. Is that kind of what happens with this?
You want, anytime you're talking about a luxury good like this, I mean,
that's what it is.
You're talking about something that who wants to gamble on $70 or $80 or $200? So that's why we get
Snake eyes.
that's why we get people like you to taste the wine, and,
Sure.
and you recommend, and some people agree with you, some people don't. But
Sure.
I mean, that's one data point. Then we have other famous people who are like telling us what's good and what's bad. There's all, but
But
people should.
you've done an amazing job of saying, screw off Gary Vaynerchuk and Spectator and Parker. I'm going to be in the trenches with my business. I'm going to be shaking hands. I'm going to go to events.
Right.
And I admire that tremendously from afar because
thanks.
I think the far majority of wineries, especially in Napa, Sonoma, other places, Santa Barbara, they need to do more of that. That makes them a more protected business.
And I found that I'm not doing enough of it because
I believe
what
that.
happens is that when you're dependent on being
Distribution?
anointed. Well, I mean,
Well,
when you're
okay.
and the distributors are working the trenches trying to sell a wine that they know is
But you
great.
probably
that
have
they've
some
tasted
good
it,
ones and some bad ones,
and then
right?
and then a retailer saying, well, what you get from
Yeah.
Wine Lover magazine or whatever it is, so
It was
people
a very
use.
politically correct statement.
I
Good
know,
job.
I know. Well, I was getting interviewed recently, and I made a mistake and used one magazine's
Uh-oh.
name and another
Then
magazine.
you got zinged, huh? Got
They said, we're going to
82.
need you to use
If
another
you don't
one.
use my name from now on, I'm going to score all your wines a 30.
Okay, well,
just saying.
I'm going to say,
3-0.
I'm going to say,
30.
I can put your name on the way.
Listen,
a little sticker across.
Rand, I got to
as
tell you,
tasted by
I'm
Gary
pretty
Vaynerchuk.
impressed with this. And 06 was early. I was not
It's
super
very
pumped with
early,
that. We'll watch. I think the 05 is tremendous. Are you still taking names on the mailing list? I
Yes,
assume
yeah.
So let's definitely link that up. Mott, let's link that up as well because, at the end
The
of the
economy
day,
will change someday, and you're going to want.
I mean, do you do events? You're at a Custom Crush, so it's kind of weird. Do you have a place?
I don't have a tasting room,
Yep.
but I certainly encourage, folks, mailing list members who are coming to town, please email me.
You'll meet them at a restaurant or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, or it's.
You'll play Batman in the backyard?
I mean, since I don't live in Napa,
Right.
I live down in the Bay Area, so my schedule's kind of limited on how often.
see.
But I love meeting people, and I see people at offlines and various
Sure.
things like that.
This was great, man.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the
It was a
wines,
pleasure.
and I enjoyed having you here. You know the drill. Question a day, fire away.
I don't know the drill.
Somebody's not watching enough Wine Library TV.
I know.
That's what happens with all you forum people.
Well, I
all
know,
the sellout original
that's right.
Vaniacs that only live in the forum now.
I know.
Tough guys.
Yeah. Well, they got a little long for a while, right?
They are. Listen, I'm long.
I
I'm
know.
shocked anybody watches one episode. Question that you get to ask the Vayner Nation out there. Any question you like about wine or anything else, fire away.
What's the best Spanish white Gary has recommended in the last year for me to buy?
That was a damn good question.
Yeah.
You, with a little bit of me, we're changing the wine world.